Oh, look at that.
Gotcha,
We're
dude.
gonna like the Brady Bunch, We're gonna
Perfect.
start pointing at everybody,
We're gonna start pointing down and
That's the story.
Young people looking up
Am I
on the
looking the right
internet.
way? It's nice because we all know each other very well, and we spend a lot of time working together. So it's important that people see your face, people know what you're doing, because you are elevating this profession. You are elevating, sharing a message of hope to so many organizations internationally. So can you at least first talk about that, and then you can ask Josh and I some questions after that, so we can share some of our stuff. But please
Yeah,
share what you're doing.
that'd be great. Yeah, I prepared some questions. I wanted to flip it and interview you guys a little bit, but before I do that, thank you. I'd love to share about what we're doing as a company, our community. We are New Horizons Global. You can find us at newhorizonsglobal.net. As you mentioned, Charlie, we all know each other, and Josh and I were just together last week.
yeah.
In Orlando. And New Horizons are the reason the company was created was to shine a bright spotlight on people doing great work. And it started out as just a small mission, and it's grown into a large community, incredible speakers and people who are doing great work with school districts, in classrooms, with organizations, with conferences, in business, everything, just truly making an impact wherever their work is. And the reason why I started this was to support the work that you're doing, because at the end of the day, we want to make a difference. We all believe in this. We're passionate. We all have a charter that we want to do and things that we want to support. And so I love this. I have the best job in the world. I get to support you guys, and it's incredible. I have my own work, but I get so fulfilled, doing this kind of work. And watching who you have be a part of the summit is incredible. David was great just before here. He was great. I know. I mean, you have people like Dr. Pepper, Dr. Hanson, Busky. I mean, you got everybody. You got Frederick, Darren, Julian, everybody. I mean, so many good people. That I'm just honored that we can be here and be part of this big community, whether we're supporting, you at, these virtual summits on professional development, workshops, welcome back day, keynotes and conferences and all of that. So thank you, for everything, because we just love being a part of the community.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm glad we're here. What do you think people need to know? What do you think people want to close this with? So we're
So
talking school behavior solutions, y'all.
yeah, yep, yeah. So I, knowing that I was going to get an opportunity to come on with you guys, I wrote up some questions for you. I've got a handful. I hope we can get to most of them. At least we get some critical ones about specifics that you guys work on. You talk about that you do, in the work that you do. And then I just have some fun ones at the end, just where, I can flip it and ask you to talk about yourself a little. So here's the first question. You guys ready for the rapid fire?
Bring it. Let's do
All
it.
right, here we go. All right, so first question. What is the connection between adult behavior and student behavior? And really, why should we care about that dynamic? Who would like to address that one?
Okay. Well, my microphone's off, so I'll just go ahead and start. Okay. Let's think nervous system. If you've heard me talk, you will have heard this, but imagine that you're walking through your own building and you notice a bunch of nervous systems walking around you. And who is heightened? Which ones are dysregulated? Which ones are not? And you got to imagine that adult role, we're the adults. We're the ones who are supposed to kind of have that regulation under control, but we didn't really learn all the skills and tools that these kids are learning these days. That we didn't talk about it the same way. And so we're sharing this big space where there's a bunch of adults who are struggling themselves. And so the way that we show up to kids is going to influence the energy of how these kids show up to us, or the tone. So I'll stop there because there's a lot more to it, but I know Josh can add to that as well.
Yeah, I think just as far as how, and this has been said already tonight too, but just how adults are perceiving just the world of discipline and consequences. And Brad, you heard me talk about this quite a bit in Florida, but just in the sense that when we look at discipline, it actually means to teach. It doesn't mean to punish. And I think that's just a misperception just in the educational space as a whole, as we are looking at traditional systems. And so, if we're looking at the behavior, is there an opportunity for the student to take ownership of their actions? Is there an opportunity for the kid to be able to talk through who was affected by the decision? Was there an opportunity for them to be taught the skills needed when they go and see that same really adverse situation again? Because they will. And then, of course, is there a way to restore what was broken, both the relationship and what was occurring with their action? And are they a part of that plan, right? Is the consequence constructed by the student, by the person that was affected, by the parent? And then, on the flip side of that thing, just as far as the system goes, we need to make sure that it's connected. Whatever that punishment is, it's connected to the action of the student. And so often what that turns into is, I'm just going to throw them in a room. And so if as a adult, if that's my action, that's my behavior, and I'm reacting to what's being done on the school campus, what the misconception is that the student's going to reflect on their own. The student's going to change their behavior. There's going to be no animosity when they go back into that educational environment, and that they're going to magically, have this perfect behavior moving forward. And so, as we know, and I have plenty of data on the campus to show that's not what occurs. And so, what are we doing creatively to change that behavior matrix, that system, and making sure that the adult behavior is doing what's going to teach the student the correct behavior versus only punishing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I just being with both of you in the last few months, it's interesting, Charlie. You referenced the nervous system. I remember watching your keynote, and you had a slide, and you said, "What if everybody looked like a nervous system?" And you had a picture of like nervous systems basically walking around. I thought that was wonderful because I've seen your work so many times. I know what you do, and this was another great way to visualize, have people take that mask off. We all wear masks. And you both of you talk about students and their stories, and this is a way to kind of show what's going on underneath. And I really appreciated what you just said. And then Josh, just in Orlando, you talked about what you just mentioned. And one of the things I thought was fascinating that you mentioned as well was consequences. You were talking about consequences. You just talked about being in a room. Consequences. It was interesting during some of the dialogue. Consequences don't always have to be negative. They can also be positive. And so some of the work is around framing. And this leads into my next question for you too. Now, I get people reach out all the time about the work you two do. I get people asking, can they come in and do workshops? Can they do welcome back? Can they speak at my conference? So my question for you, because as I know, as people call in, they know they've got some things that they want to address. They know they've got some issues. So when you get called in and we work on this and you go out and work with groups and buildings, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see schools make when they're trying to improve behavior, and what should they be doing instead?
Okay, I'll address this, and I know Josh will always have some great stuff to add too. I think we're being too complicated. I think we have too many strategies and there's not a lot of clarity. We're not simplifying it. Teachers don't want to implement or can't implement what they can't remember. It's got to integrate into everyday practice. We don't need a whole transformation of a system as far as more to do. We need to use the systems we already have in place. We need to use what we've already invested in. That includes time, funding of programs. We've got a lot of great people and great things in place already, but we need something that's going to be sustainable long term. And so we need to invest in the capacity of the people already there. So most schools are trying to control behavior, and any high performing school designs for it. We heard Mimosa this morning. Not this morning. That's how long ago it feels.
It feels like this morning.
It does. It came out very easily too. But 4:30 Eastern time, so several hours ago. But she started us off talking about how they design schools around it, and their numbers are so low with behavior and mental health problems. It's true. So instead of saying how do we stop behavior, it's more about what conditions make this behavior unnecessary anymore, that it won't even happen in the first place. So that's the work that Josh and I love to do, because it doesn't have to be a huge solution. In fact, it's got to be so simple that we'll actually do it.
Yeah, I just want to expand on that. I think Charlie and I are working too much together because we start to have the same answers. But I think
Me too.
in the past, and we wrote about this in the language of behavior, it was like, hey, what is it that we can put in place that doesn't require more resources? It doesn't require more people. It doesn't require more funding, right? Because these are all the struggles that we're all facing, especially as educational leaders. Or if you're a teacher and you have some great idea of something you want to implement, you're always running into that same wall, right? So what is it that we ask our teachers? Okay, what are the pitfalls? What are the things that get in the way? Well, it's always time, right? And it's not it's time, and then also not knowing, like, that communication that's lacking, right? Because what happens in a typical situation? The two highest referral pieces is disrespect and that a student is off task. Those are the two highest referred, and it doesn't matter where Charlie and I are. That's typically how the data looks. And those students in a traditional model are either put in the hallway or they're sent to the front office. Well, what happens in that? Well, they're losing educational time. The teacher doesn't know what's going on with that student. They don't get to build a relationship with them. However, they would like to have all those components. And so, for instance, what Charlie's talking about is we put in a system with plenty of schools where it's a push-in model, where someone comes in, relieves that teacher just for 3 to 5 minutes for the teacher to be able to go out for a low-level infraction, talk with a student, get an understanding of what's going on behind the behavior, give them the expectations, get a verbal agreement, and bring them back into the classroom. Well, that right there, Brad, doesn't take any more money, doesn't take any more people, all the roadblocks that we're talking about, where the teacher then can communicate with the student, understand what's going on in their life, build a better relationship, and show that they care about that student. Well, what's the end product of that? Well, they get thousands, like campus literally gets thousands of minutes back into the educational environment. The teacher feels like they have ownership in the situation, and it doesn't have to escalate to something that's grander. How many times is a kid kicked out in the hallway and it turns into something that takes all day of the teacher and the administrator's time when it could be something that's a low level thing?
Yeah, so that's absolutely incredible. And the thing is, I'm always taking interesting notes and things that something that you guys said, talk about simplifying and less is more. And then, in the beginning, that's what you said, Charlie. And then Josh, you're talking about the same kind of thing. Is like, okay, what can we do that doesn't take more money, more staff? What's realistic? And all of us know that when we do our work, we're always trying to be thoughtful and cognizant of like what's realistic, what can you take back, because we don't want to have to give more. We know teachers and leaders and everybody are so stressed with their time restraints and their responsibilities, and like what is a takeaway. So being able to simplify and having that lens of, okay, what's realistic, what can you do? Well, that takes me now to the next thing. I know you guys have already been talking about this, but I'd like to flip this real quick as I interview you two. I'd like to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. And so one thing I want to ask is like, how can educators strengthen their emotional intelligence, especially when they're responding to stress, behavior, and conflict, and conflict with more intention and have less reactivity? So what would you say to that? Like, what can educators do? Any tips or just insights that you could share real quick?
Oh, I got tips. You want me to share them?
I know you do, and that's why
Yeah.
I wanted to set you up, because
And
you guys have been doing such a good job interviewing so many wonderful people who are making an impact. You're not going to ask people to, like, you are so good about your work that I want to make sure that people hear this. I've got more questions, but I'd like to start there. If you've got some tips to share, I'd love to get that out so educators and leaders can hear that.
Josh, you want to go first? Because I've gone first twice. Okay, okay, okay.
Sticking with the
All right.
ladies
I
first.
will
I love
always default to you, Charlie. You go.
it.
Okay. All right. All right. So I want you guys to try this with me now. You guys don't have to, but you could if you want, but people watching. So when you have escalation, this is a problem, right? This is like, how do I de-escalate? Well, catch it before it gets to the escalation in the first place. There's a lot of strategies there. That's where we do the rapid resets. Just give everybody a reset as you start the day, the morning, the staff meeting. So know that those nervous systems are coming in dysregulated. You know there's going to be at least a few, and probably yours is as well. So do those rapid resets. I always teach this one first. People seem to
Yep.
love that one.
Yep.
I've got a whole bunch of them. There's free rapid resets. Go to thrivingeducator.org. It's at the top. It says free rapid resets. Go get those. But Start with a regulated system yourself. And then when you notice there is going to be dysregulation, because we know it's going to start, I want you to imagine a ladder. There's the ladder of conflict. If you've heard me talk before, you may have heard this, but I want you to envision it. In the first rung of the ladder is discomfort. And we have a really hard time as humans sitting at discomfort. You've probably heard that before. Then what happens is the person who is starting to escalate climbs up and becomes irritable, then agitated, and it keeps going up and up to rage. To rage. Sometimes people go right from discomfort right to rage. You probably know those people. You probably know. Okay. What I want you to do is notice when somebody else has climbed on that ladder to discomfort. Notice their body signals, notice their shift. I want you to pay attention. You already know the energy has shifted. You know. Instead of moving through that, I want you to notice yourself and where you've climbed on the ladder, because oftentimes we try to climb up and match that. That's not okay to do. Not in conflict. Not in conflict. In calm, yes, not in conflict. So notice where you are on that ladder. If you're at agitation, you're kind of pacing, you're like just get boiling over. I want you to notice where you are, acknowledge it, and then see yourself climbing down that darn ladder. That's what we need to do. And when you show back up to that person, this could be a staff member, a colleague, a parent, a student, a person in the community. I want you to do this, and this is very kinesthetic. So show up calm and collected. Use your voice low and slow, and be firm but fair. And you'll need to repeat what you need to say probably a couple of times so that they are registering it. Josh, I know you wrote about this in our book, is about they're not hearing you anyway. So we do need to repeat and be low and slow. And when you repeat, it's essential that you repeat it in that tone. Their nervous system over time will learn that your nervous system is actually okay and safe to be around. So that's just a couple little things. Josh, what else do you have to say? I know you've
Yeah,
got
I'll expand on it because in one of our tenets we talk about essentially decoding student behavior, and that requires a emotional intelligence as far as how you're treating other people, how you're reacting to them, how you're also taking in the information, right? If to your point, Charlie, I wrote about plenty of students in the book, but one specifically was stiff as a board. They had clenched fists, their eyes were glossy, they were non-responsive when communicated to. Well, if we have emotional intelligence, we understand that that student isn't regulated, right? And so often we don't understand some of these key ingredients to a fight, flight, or freeze behavior. And sometimes too, I want to talk on the fact that sometimes we're so reactive instead of regulating ourselves. Like we're not very self-reflective in that. And I know I have triggers. I have had plenty of students know me inside and out and are pushing every button to make sure that I blow my top, right? At home, my 6 kids, they all know how to do it too. So I need to be self-reflective in the sense that, okay, I understand that I'm about to lose control of my emotions. So since I know that, I'm not going to be reactive. I'm going to take a beat. Maybe if I can tap in another teacher, if I can tap in my wife, that would be great. Or even saying at this moment, this is not the time to have this conversation and taking a break, right? Maybe I'll do some of the steps that Charlie was talking about. Maybe I'm doing box breathing to regulate myself, to get myself in a good state of mind before coming back and having a potentially stressful conversation with the individual. And this could be with as a leader, with a teacher, it could be with a student, it could be with a parent. I mean, there are a lot of people that can trigger us and that can lead to a lot of unhealthy things.
Incredible. And this is great. And I just have a few more. And for those of you who are just jumping in or listening to the podcast later, I am Brad Wade with New Horizons. I am interviewing Charle Peck and Josh Stamper as we start to wrap up their virtual summit, something they do every 6 months. Incredible work. So as we start to wrap up, I just have a few more questions for you guys. I wrote some things down. You know, Charle, you have the ladder of conflict. You guys have the wheel of reactivity. You have your 3 tenets. Like I see all this work. So that brings me into my next question for those people who are watching. I know you do PD and you do cohorts and have a cohort model. So let's talk about the PD first. So if somebody's just listening, like I wonder what their PD looks like. Could you guys just give a little bit of an overview of what, if somebody works with you, what their your professional development sessions or services kind of look like, so they can say, I'd love to be a part of that?
Yeah. Well, we have to equip people. I mean, we have to build capacity. And anytime you see what we're doing here, this is how we show up and teach it. I'm a little animated, but I want you to remember I'm trying to utilize the senses and that kinesthetic learning so that you'll remember it so much that when you go back to that system that is dysregulated, the whole system is dysregulated, not just our nervous system, it's the whole education system, the family system. I want you to go back and retrain your brain so that your automatic response is not to get to that rage or that irritability. It's to sit in the discomfort and notice the state you're in, because your nervous system will override any training you get anytime. Any training you've learned, if you don't get a hold of your nervous system first, you're going to forget all that you've learned and that you want to show up as. That's why we have regrets. And that is plaguing people, bringing them into my therapy practice, working on that depression or anxiety that they have. So we need to train them, and we build capacity doing that. So there are so many things we can actually do, is go back to the classroom, go back to the leadership team, and we're going to equip the people within the system so that we can have long-term sustainability. That's what our professional development is. It is no longer saying, hey, let us come in and just do one session for you. That is not going to have the kind of change that you want. So we're going to help you disrupt that story spiral that you put yourself in, the big fat lie that your brain tells you. And we're going to help you stop escalating. And it starts with you. And that's good news, because that is the person that you can first control. And we're going to equip you to spread that out through your entire system so we make change from the inside out. So I know Josh will have some really great strategies and be able to paint a little bit, probably a better picture of what that would look like.
Well, we'll do make it more practical, right? So,
Yeah, I knew you
Brad,
would.
to your point, there are a lot of schools that are using the language of behavior as a book study. So if you're looking, especially at this time of year, I know a lot of leaders are reaching out to Charlie, myself, and Brad as far as what PD is going to look like for next year.
Right.
And if your budget is on the lower end and you want a starting point, I would definitely highly suggest that, because I think that's going to at least start the conversation. The other piece that a lot of folks are looking at is those start of the year kickoff keynotes. And we're already starting to book those for the new year. But Charlie and I, if in an ideal world, is that we have more touch points throughout the year. So if we can do the kickoff, great, but we don't want to end there. We would love to come back to the campus or the district to have more times to do breakout sessions or have, multiple keynotes so that we're really diving in. But our bread and butter, the thing that we love the most, is what Dwight was talking about before, which is the cohort model. So, Charlie, do you mind talking through the cohort model real quick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was Josh. Thank you. You must have read my show notes. I was
Oh,
that was
I,
that was my next question. I wanted to have you guys speak on the cohort model. I'm
oh,
familiar
perfect.
with it, and I'd love to hear, explain to the group and everyone watching what it is, and then just kind of explain how it's going. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, the cohort model is based on just foundational skill building to start. We've got to build that EQ. We've got to build that ability to notice what's going on in you first. So we have three sets of skills, and it's actually based on the first book that I wrote with Dr. Cameron Caswell. She helped me develop skills. And so Josh and I take the system level and then the skill building level, and we pieced it together to do a whole system approach. But the cohort model is about equipping with the skill sets and sharing the ability to tease it out with each other and just reflect, but also apply. So not only are we teaching what the skill is in simple terms so that they can actually leave that session and go use it that same day. By the way, it's got to be used both professionally and personally, because we're struggling in both places. There's a spillover effect. So the skills are for that. They're equipping you, they're building capacity in your staff. So your investment is in your team. And so we choose people who want to lead the change. We are choosing people in the cohort. That's what's so key. We don't often do full staff all at once, because we're finding that we're fighting that pushback, that buy-in, and the buy-in, the change really comes from the leadership. And that can be that rock star teacher. You know who that is. That's probably you who showed up here tonight, and leading that change by being equipped yourself. and then being able to run it throughout the whole system, including students and parents. So that's the kind of scope and scale that Josh and I use. Yeah.
And it's interesting because, having been a classroom teacher for 15 years, I'm married to a principal, I'm still in the realm and do a lot of work in education as well. And as people are listening, they think about their own professional development when you're at your school, your district, you have multiple days a year, and you're hoping that it's very valuable. And sometimes it's curriculum based or what based, whatever it might be, whatever that is. One of the nice things is about what you guys are doing. You just said it. The stuff that you are working on, the professional development's not just on the professional side, it's personal. These are things that benefit us as humans. And if our lives are more settled at home, we perform better at work. If we're happy at work, we're happier at home as well. And they are very intertwined. And so it's nice to hear that the work you're doing, it doesn't just benefit a staff member on a professional capacity. It benefits a human on every capacity. So that's incredible. So thank you for sharing that. And as I start to wrap up this reverse interview for both of you, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining. Thank you for you two for the work that you do and everything that you are doing. So as I leave, I want to ask one last question. What would you recommend? Just one thing on somebody to get started. Somebody's watching, somebody's listening. They've listened to incredible people. Like, it may be specific, it may be general, because our hope always is when people leave, they have at least one thing, one takeaway. Some people have got a list and they're like, I'm getting started. It's going to be great. But on a big global view, if I could just get one piece from each of you, is there one thing that you would say, I would recommend consider this or get started like this, or just don't forget? Can both of you share? Charlie, can we start with you?
Sure. Honestly, the free version with a lot of tips and strategies already is our podcast, The Language of Behavior. You can just go search that up, Charlie and Josh, and it'll show up. We're like weekly want to give you those tangible tips and strategies, and we tried to make it very applicable to what you're experiencing right now in education and organizations.
So just start going, listen to the podcast. Just find a starting point. You're here tonight. Thank you for being part of it, everybody. So go jump on the podcast, just see what it says and just listen and be a part of this community, because as you can see, incredible people. And we don't do this in a vacuum. We don't do this alone. We do this together. Thank you for that, Charlie. Josh, one closing piece for everybody before I let you go, and then you guys do your official close.
Yeah, of course. So I think the word that you use, Brad, is perfect. Consider, right? Just consider something from tonight. It doesn't even have to be during our 30 minutes together. It could be something else that's been said earlier from one of our amazing guests. Is just consider it. And the second piece of that, and I think it was mentioned earlier, is that if it's a small step, it's more likely that you're going to do it. And that's that motivation piece that Frederick was talking about. So if we think of it too large, if it's the entire plate versus just a small little sample of food, it's going to be a complete mind shift where it's going to feel like you're defeated before you even began. So whatever that small thing is, that's something that you can implement tomorrow versus looking at the whole system.
Excellent. Well, thank you, both of you. And as I wrap up, hey, everybody watching, if you have questions about them, you can reach out to me as well. Reach out to them. They are great people, as you know. They do incredible work, as everybody here knows. And thank you for everybody for all the work you're doing. Charlie, Josh, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. We are honored. New Horizons, we are so honored to be a part of your work and support you in this incredible community. So from all of us here at New Horizons, thank you to all of you watching and doing all the work that you do every day.
Awesome. Well, I want to give something away, Brad, and I know Charlie's with me on this, is that I'm going to put in the chat your email, because if there's anyone that's watching on YouTube or live today that's going to look at PD for next year and they want to book Charlie and I for anything, we'll give 50 free books away, Brad.
Amazing. Oh my God. That's incredible.
First two folks. Yes.
First two folks that reach out, reference this. You're getting 50 free books. And hey, my job is always to just make sure everybody can work together as easily as possible. Remove all roadblocks, because We just want to make a difference in the world. So thank you. That's incredible. I will put that on my notes. And first 2 people to reach out and do some work together with you guys, getting 50 free books. That's awesome. I did not know that. That's great to hear.
Yeah,
A
awesome.
little freebie there for folks.
I like it. Awesome. Well, thank you too. I'm going to drop off, let you 2 close. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, everybody. It's so good seeing you. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.